So here's some of the barriers to people understanding their humanity. One is historical trauma. Particularly for Native Americans, we talk about this concept of historical trauma, but I think this happens for more than just Native Americans. And I want you to put this picture in your mind. Imagine your car is stolen. You go to the police and you say, my car is stolen, and they do what they do, which is write a report. So they write a report, and then you come back home from writing this report with the police, and your car is in your neighbor's driveway. What's your next recourse?
Next door.
I'm going to go across the street, talk to my neighbor, and say, you got my car. My neighbor's going to say, no, I don't have your car. It's my car. They're like, wait a minute, what do you mean it's your car? It was mine this afternoon, and now tonight it's your car? Yes, it's my car. So then you call the police again. They come take a report. You go to court. What if the judge says, you know what, your statute of limitations on that car is up. This car now belongs to them. Now, this is your neighbor. This is somebody you got to look at every day, and you see your car sitting in their driveway knowing they stole it from you. Now the neighborhood is going to have a car show. So the neighbor comes across the street to you and says, you know what, I want you to help me polish this car up so that I can show it in the car show. How do you feel about the car show? I don't want no parts of the car show, right? What do you feel about your neighbor? I don't want no parts of my neighbor, right? And they live through this day in and day out, looking at what the potential of what they could be is. And you can't tell me that does not build the human soul. That slowly tears it apart and becomes very difficult to operate in a culture. I'm not saying that it's not possible, and I'm not trying to make excuses for folks, but it certainly is something to consider, particularly when we work with Native folks, right? So we talk about institutional racism. Institutional racism is that larger context that impacts people's behavior. 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. 1964, those same folks or the grandchildren of those folks get equal rights. That's 101 years. In that 101 years, for other people, life went on. For some folks, 101 years was a stagnation point. They became bonsai'd by that 101 years. I'm not concerned about those people because given another 101 years, I believe that they will catch up. But it's going to take some time. And so institutional racism, anyone who says that I've done this by myself needs to reflect on what they've done in that 101-year gap. So compare your comparisons on that. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Thank you. Lastly, poverty. Poverty is crippling. It sucks being poor. Sucks, right? Being able to not provide for your family, not having the things that other folks need and want and that kind of stuff is not just psychological, but it actually has some impact on if just think about this in your local community. Think about the folks who are in affluence and what their lifestyle is like, and do some research on what their longevity is. And do the same for the folks in the poorer parts of your community. What is their longevity like? What are their lifestyles like? Right? And there's a direct correlation between poverty and people's wellness or their ability to be well. And I believe that the system of racism is not about skin color, but it is about economics. That race has become currency, and racism is the economic system to engage that currency. And we can talk about that later. Lastly, a barrier to my humanity is this concept of whiteness. One of the things that, I don't know if you've experienced this in your districts or whatnot, but there's this concept of white privilege, and people talk about white privilege. And I believe that white privilege is a misnomer. I think that it was a good card that was played at its right time, but if we keep playing that card, we're going to keep losing the deck. So when I talk about whiteness, it's important to realize that white privilege is not something that every white person has. Because if you ask white people themselves, they will tell you that white people are not all equal. Because white people who educationally don't match up, socially match up, what do we call them? What do white people call them? Trash. White trash, right? Or if they hang too close with black folks, they call them wiggers. If they're too rural, we call them rednecks, right? So there are all these categories, which then begs the question, what is this thing called white? And what I would suggest is that whiteness as well as blackness are all part of this capitalistic system that's designed to keep us in a state of wanting what other people have. Some people tan so they can get what other people have. Some people are bleaching themselves so they can get what other people have. And as long as we stay in this system of want, the capitalistic system runs rampant and it damages all of us.
One thing the white privilege, my daughter went to when she was in high school, but she's just 27 or 28 or whatever. She went to, when she was in high school, a white privilege conference, and one of the things that she brought back to me was what white privilege was explained to her was that a white woman could go into any store and get anything that she wants. She can get the makeup in her color, the stockings in her color. She needs the hair products that she needs. Any store in America. I can't. I have to go in the neighborhood, in the black neighborhood, and then finally, okay, now I didn't kind of go around now. Target has a few shelves that has some black hair care products. If I can, I may be able to find some coffee, but it's still in a little section.
And I would say, those are things to be considered. Those are things that can have an effect. But what I'm really trying to talk about is how much more we are alike than how we are different.
Oh yeah.
And so part of that old way of talking about that is highlighting those differences, right? But now when I look on the magazine shelves, I can see black people as much as I can see white people on these magazine covers and in different things, but I don't know that I like the images that I see of any of them, right? I got rappers, so if I count the number of brown faces, I might have more or the same as other folks, but I don't like seeing these half-naked women I'm trying to buy groceries. I don't, all this, so the way that the system tries to play us, I think is more important to talk about, and to recognize that our students see this. They might not necessarily understand it at the level of sophistication that we have, but they certainly see it and understand it, and they try to. Environments require that if you're going to be successful, that you comply with what's going on, and so. Miley Cyrus, her shaking her butt like that doesn't surprise me because she's been a conformist as a part of the capitalistic machine since she was born, right? I mean, the whole Mickey Mouse Club thing, that's all about how do you fit into what we perceive to be the mainstream stuff. And so creating students that are free thinkers, even if they don't necessarily agree with you, even if they don't necessarily think like you, make sure they have the right answers, but they should have the ability to be motivated free thinkers. Make sure that they understand that they can have dignity. Whatever you're going to do, be good at what you're doing. You have dignity. Dignity is that self-pride that you have for yourself, but it's also the same thing that you give to other people. And I believe that authentic dignity only happens when you're giving it to somebody else. That's how I know you have it, because you're able to give it to somebody else. And so that shows that you have it. Honor is the highest level of respect. If we think about, folks that we're supposed to honor in our society as folks like our parents, servicemen and women, veterans of foreign wars, people who have done things for us that we couldn't do for ourselves. I think that's important. None of us brought ourselves here. None of us brought ourselves here. We all accepted an invitation. I don't want to think about how that invitation came. It's disgusting. But we accepted that invitation, and so now we're here, and we're trying to figure out what it means to be human. And human has two definitions. One is the noun, being a biped, having opposable thumbs and a big brain. The last is that it is an adjective, right? So it describes how to be. And so once we're able to make sure that our students understand that there's dignity and honor in being human, for them as well as somebody else, I don't believe that you can you can have respect unless you're giving it to somebody else. My humanity is only recognized or can only or is best emphasized when I'm in relationship with other people and when I'm in service of them. Because if I'm in service of them, they'll be in service of me and we'll all be taken care of. You were going to say something, sir.
No, go ahead.
Okay, cool. What is your name? What are your names and where are you
My name
from?
is Angela. I'm from Maryland.
Okay.
Lynn Malone, Minnesota.
All right, cool.
Where are you from?
I teach in West St. Paul. Maryland.
Maryland.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we'll just go around.
Sam Robinson from Maryland as well.
Charlene Wilcox, I'm from Titusville, Minnesota. That's where I teach.
I'm John Whiteman. I'm from Montana.
Where in Montana?
Hardin,
Okay.
right next to an Indian reservation.
Yeah.
And, you're talking all the race stuff and stuff. I'm sitting around, for black people. I don't see that many black people in a month.
You don't see that many people, period.
Yeah,
my wife is
But I do have a black son-in-law, so.
my wife is a Assiniboine.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, she's from Lodgepole.
Okay, that's just straight north of where
Yeah.
where I'm from.
Cool.
Seth Levitt in South Minneapolis.
Sweet. So we've talked about. I mean, I've given a lot of information for yeah. So
I gotta say too that I'm seeing in the city. I grew up in the 50s, 60s, and I tell my kids too. I see them living the dream. I see many of them who are genuinely loving one another and not seeing a white or black or Asian. And when I look in my room and I see white, black, Asian, American Indian, East Indian, it's just different. It warms my heart. And I appreciate it once. Boy, if we could just sometimes just remove them from their parents and their parents' old ways of thinking where they wouldn't take them. And the kids right now
Parents, yeah.
could really just, because I think they deal with each other genuinely. And I tell them there's two kind of people in the world, good and evil. And that's what I've learned in my 57 years of living. There are two kind of people in the world. It took me a while to get there because I come from Louisville, Kentucky. I was taught white people, and this is not so much what I tell you, what I saw too on TV. I saw the hoses. I saw these things. I didn't read about them. I watched them. And for me to come to Minnesota and see a whole different way of life was just a culture shock to me. And I've been here for many years, and I have had to begin to look at people and just see that there are just two kinds of people, good and evil in the world. And my rich, you said the rich Terrell Suggs, he's a friend, close friend, y'all say in Maryland. He's from Minnesota, he's born here, So anyway, he's our millionaire.
Right.
Family.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I live in a whole different. I kind of live in a whole different world,
Are you serious?
Like your wife, she's in Assiniboine. She's kind of stuck out there on the reservation and with no white community close by except maybe Havard.
Yep, Havard.
Yep. But like me, my school, we're on a reservation. We bus 3/4 of our kids in, and we travel a long way. We kids travel 50 miles one way on the bus.
Yep.
We have 16 buses at our school. We're not a big school. I think our whole school district's like 1,600 kids. Our middle school, where I work, is 385 kids, 75% Native American. When I started in '90, it was 50%, and so we're growing fast, and we're, like I said, we're busing in all these kids, and our school is right on the border, Hardin. I don't know if you're familiar with Hardin.
Yeah.
But